Neversoft Spider-Man for the PS1 is my favorite Spider-Man game ever made. Now before you start raging in the comments, note that I said favorite Spider-Man game, not the best. I think the one thing that separates this game the most for me from all the other ones was the tone. Specifically the ones of the characters. Rino Romano's voice for Spider-Man, to me, is the definitive Spider-Man voice and is the one I hear in my head when I read Spider-Man comics.
Being Spider-Man has given me a lot and taken a lot away, but one thing never changes. My responsibility to use my powers for others before myself, no matter what the cost. There are innocent people at Omnitech and they need our help right now. I won't let them down. Then I'll stop Venom. And this time, it's for the last time.
He can be really funny and really quippy at times, but also knows how to dial it down and be serious when he needs to be. Venom in particular is very similar to Spider-Man in that he never really stops running his mouth. Very much a peanut gallery in this game. However, there are also instances where he will drop his voice. The voice actor will literally go into this deep, more guttural sounding voice and say just weird and uncomfortable and intimidating things that just make your fucking skin crawl.
Tasty.
I think another great thing was the amazing soundtrack for it. Granted, a lot of it is just looped beats over and over again, but fuck, man, them things is bangers, man. I just be fucking jamming to that shit just on the daily, just while I'm fucking cooking dinner or doing chores around the house and shit. I'll just be like, yeah, motherfucker. It's very grunge, it's very 90s, and it just captures that fucking essence. Now, while all the things I mentioned are the core reasons why I love this Spider-Man game and things that I think should never be changed about it, everything else is, it's pretty janky and bad, I'm not gonna lie. The web swinging, basically just a glorified double jump. It gets you from point A to point B. There's nothing flashy about it. Webs don't connect to buildings. You're getting held by Uncle Ben's spirit in the sky in heaven. That's all you get. Nothing much to it. Second thing is the combat. Combat is just mashing square or circle. Occasionally you might hit a little triangle action in there every now and then, but most of the time you're just gonna be spamming the square and circle button. Or, if you're like me, the web ball, because that shit's overpowered. And last but not least, the goddamn camera. Or lack thereof, I should say, because you can't fucking control it. It'll get stuck on geometry in the level, and oftentimes, if you try to move around too much, you'll fall through the goddamn level. I don't know why this happens. This game can be really glitchy at times, where if you even try to use the L1 targeting mode to get out of it, you often just make it worse. And it just infuriates me that I can't fully recommend this game to somebody who really wants to get into the Spider-Man mythos, because I feel like it's a good starting point, which is why I personally think that this game deserves a remake, because the vibe, the essence, everything you love about the 90s to early 2000s Spider-Man is here. And I think if Vicarious Visions wanted to give it another crack, this is just kind of what I think they should do. Okay, first things first, the level design. You gotta make the levels bigger. This is a linear style game. You want to get from point A to point B, and the big thing you want to do is try to fill the area in between those 2 points with meaningful and interesting content. You want to be able to make this game really, really replayable. People want to have secrets, they want collectibles, they want costumes, they want comics, and they want extra missions. This game comes from an era where scavenger hunts were all over these types of games. Players want to be able to come back 5, 10, 15 years from now and discover new stuff that they didn't know the first time they played. A good example would be the first time I played this game back when I was a stupid little baby. When I was 3 or 4 years old, I didn't fucking know that the Green Goblin's lair was in some random crane when you're running from the cops. I didn't find that out until I was damn near a teenager. Sucks that you couldn't fight him, but still, that was just so cool to see. You need more things like that to keep people invested and to keep people playing the game. How about this time, instead of just making it a simple Easter egg, we can actually make it a full-fledged boss fight. For the people that played the original and remembered where that Easter egg was, maybe once you go there you find a key or something, or maybe you find a map that veers you off the beaten path into like a small little hidden area where the boss fight can happen. People who didn't grow up with the game can discover that in a YouTube Let's Play and find out this old secret that us old heads knew. I think another cool addition would be to add street level missions. People breaking into small businesses around town and stealing stuff because the cops told the civilians to evacuate while the fog was coming in, and the criminal underworld is taking advantage of it. It'd be really cool if Spider-Man goes in to stop a crime, any collateral damage that might have occurred, put out a fire that they might have caused. It'd be really cool to see Spider-Man actually stop for a second on his main mission and go down and help people because, you know, he's a fucking superhero. And since Spider-Man would inevitably have to do fighting while at ground level, this leads into my next topic of the camera, the combat, and the overall movement of Spider-Man himself. Now, I kind of clumped all these together because I feel like they all play a huge role in how Spider-Man should control and overall feel. Spider-Man should be slick and flashy and feel pretty light on his feet, I would think. He's constantly moving and dodging and jumping off walls and enemies, but in this game he feels so sluggish. When you try to do a jump kick or punch, there's actually a huge frame of recovery animations when Spider-Man's coming back up. It feels so slow and it doesn't feel like you're fighting as Spider-Man. It feels like you're the Hulk trying to pull his big weighty fist back. Another huge problem with the combat is that it doesn't even utilize the spider sense, like, at all. You know, the most important thing to the Spider-Man power set? Yeah, gone. If somebody's trying to attack you from behind, you're basically just gonna tank that hit. You have no dedicated dodge button, and even when you jump, they're gonna end up locking onto you as you're going into the air, so you're still gonna tank the hit. It's just stupid. And the fact that we can't even turn the camera around to see who's going to attack us in the first place just makes it even worse. So obviously the most important step would be to actually utilize the spider sense, so that way I can actually dodge out of the way of anybody attacking from behind who I don't see. Yeah, that'd be sick. And also having the ability to turn the camera so I can see anybody coming from the side or behind me, since, you know, spider sense is kind of like clairvoyance anyway. I should be able to see everything coming around me. That'd be pretty dope. Another thing that also should be added is an actual stealth combat system. I feel like the original game kind of tries to lean into Spider-Man maybe sort of being stealthy, but it doesn't really do that great of a job. The most you're gonna be able to do is go up to the ceiling, hit a dude with a web ball, and somehow the other guy may notice it or may not. It really doesn't matter. Even if they notice it, if you take them out before they shoot the hostages, you're fine. You see, it's just really janky. It feels like it's not really meant to be there. It's more just kind of like implied stealth, which is just a fucking weird concept to begin with. But yeah, I feel like there should be some kind of takedown system, you know, similar to the Noir universe in Shattered Dimensions. I also feel like in the more open areas, such as rooftops and whatnot, there should definitely be a lot more enemies for Spider-Man to fight, bigger groups, because it kind of makes sense for them to have a whole group going after a fucking superhero since they're all regular ass dudes. One normal Joe Schmo from down the block ain't doing shit against Spider-Man, so having them all clumped together in a big group for Spider-Man to fight in kind of like a horde, that would be tight. This would also be where I think another great addition would come in, which is to incorporate more of what the Raimi tie-in games had, where they basically took this game's combat system and just expanded upon it a little more. They used various button combinations that would do special combat moves. They even added upgrades to the web gloves and the web ball, making them stronger. I think incorporating that with directional inputs and things like that, almost making it kind of like a Spider-Man fighting game in a way, would definitely improve on this very dated combat system so much, and would add so much replay value if, just like in those games, you could collect certain things or buy things in an upgrade shop to make your Spider-Man more powerful, especially when you're fighting those stronger enemies like the symbiotes and lizardmen. Spider-Man should also be able to use the world around him with his web attacks, just like he did in the Amazing Universe in Shattered Dimensions, where he would literally pull debris out of the ground with his webs and whip it at enemies, or spin in a big circle creating like a web cyclone, or he would just make this giant fucking fist of webbing that he would just pop motherfuckers in the face with. It'd be so cool to have not only it be an homage to that game, but also the early like Ditko era comics where Spider-Man just did the most ridiculous cartoony shit with his webs. And speaking of webbing, I think it's time I got to my final thing that I'd want overhauled, which is the web swinging. Now, okay, while this is certainly the one thing I want the most work done to, it's not terrible. It gets you from point A to point B. It does its job, but that's all it does. And I think when it comes to Spider-Man, the web swinging, the traversal, should be the most fun part about it. Which is why I think for this game, I'm not even going to focus on webs attaching to buildings for this segment. I might just make a whole separate video on what I'd want to do with that. But for now, I think the main thing is to just make it fun. Don't make it this lock-on double jump that you use to get from point to point. You should be able to swing everywhere across the level. You can wall run. You can use enemies to maybe web strike like in Web of Shadows to keep your momentum going and kind of pogo off of them into another trick, into another building, and just keep going. Maybe even implement like a score system or something, kind of like a Tony Hawk game. Maybe get grades at the end of levels depending on how fast you completed it, how stylish you were when you were traversing the level, or some shit like that. I think it would introduce such a fun element into this really, really awesome world that Neversoft built in this old-ass game. Okay, now that I got that out of my system, I think it's finally time I wrap up this video. Oh, man, this was all just a bunch of ranting bullshit that I was doing at 3 a.m. and I was like, man, I gotta get a video about this out because it's just been on my mind for so long. And while none of my ideas are perfect at all, these are just some things that I feel like we could take and refine in the future. Maybe I'll make more videos around this subject. If you guys want to see that, just let me know in the comments and everything. Please like the video, share it, all that fucking bullshit that YouTubers tell you to do. Alright, I'm rambling now. I'm gonna end this shit. Thank you guys so much for sitting through this garbage. I'll see you guys in the next video, whatever the hell I make. Peace out, yo.